Item number 22. This item was pulled. The first speaker that we have is Kenneth Cassidy. Is Tony Marquardt here? Tony? Mr. Cassidy, you have 6 minutes.
Good morning, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. In a week when police officers in Garland, Texas stopped an ISIS attack, saving dozens of lives, and in a week when police officers from across the state have come to Austin to remember over 24 heroes who've made the ultimate sacrifice to keep Texas communities safe, this council has been asked to consider an appointment to the Public Safety Commission of a person that doesn't even believe there should be a police department to protect the weakest amongst us. Please understand, the Austin Police Association and over 1,700 men and women that we represent do not oppose this nomination because we want to stifle dissent. We oppose this nomination because the nominee's own words and actions show that he is unfit to serve in this capacity. We feel that the nominee lacks the virtue of civil discourse, an important element for the success of a diverse commission. Please watch this video and see how quickly an interaction turns into the nominee branding an officer as a Nazi.
Is that an arbitrary rule? Is that an arbitrary rule? Why? I know, but I'm backing up past your imaginary line, but why did you make it right here? Johnson 3979? Just because you want to be a bully? Just so you can boss people around? You're the one. I'm not the one who's going around arresting people, throwing people in jail because they didn't commit. No, oh, that's what the Nazis said. That's what the Nazis said. Harassment. I'm harassing you guys?
The nominee also posted online calling one of the officers a pig. This is the same officer, Sergeant Adam Johnson, whose heroic actions saved lives here in Austin when an active shooter riddled downtown government buildings with hundreds of rounds from an assault rifle. This nominee posted an officer's home address on social media. This cowardly act was done to harass and intimidate the officer. It potentially put his wife and children at risk. The next video I would like to show you will demonstrate that the nominee has no regard for the safety of community or even himself and those he associates with, as well as an indefensible prejudice against the men and women that risk their lives daily to protect our community.
Watching cops kids off.
Second film.
Should I get out of the car and ask him if he always drives like an asshole?
No, because he'll just take off soon.
There's the cops
There,
right
fuckhead! Hey, what's your deal? What's your deal? What's your deal? Hey, are you a cop? What's your deal? What's your deal?
Roll down Nathan's window so he can get a view of the big-ass camera. Scoot up a little bit so he can see Nathan, so he knows he's being watched.
Hey man, what's your problem? What's your problem? What's with the road rage? Are you a cop? A cop wannabe?
See if you can get up past him so Nathan can get a shot of his face. Because I can't see shit from here. If he goes at this speed, he's gonna fucking lose it. That's a Civic. Red light. Just letting you know. Nice. There we go. No, now you're trapped. See if you can get Nathan up for a shot of his face.
Hey, man. Hey.
Oh, fuck. Dude, holy shit.
Fucking dick.
Jesus Christ.
Watching this video, did you notice that when the nominee passes an officer on the road, he makes an unsolicited comment calling the officer a F-head? I cannot imagine what would cause a citizen to have that kind of hatred for a man or woman who's out there serving their community and protecting their community. For all the nominee knew, that officer could have been on their way to what might have been their last call. It is equally shocking that the nominee would race up Airport Boulevard. I have someone else that will give me their time. Andrew Romero.
That's fine. Andrew Romero donating his time. 3 more minutes.
It is equally shocking that the nominee would race up Airport Boulevard yelling at another motorist over a perceived injustice, putting the community, himself, and the others in the vehicle at risk, rather than calling 911. We believe the purpose of a Public Safety Commission is to serve the community's voice, to advise this body on how the community can be safer. How can a citizen serve in this capacity publicly if they cannot do so privately? The next video shows the nominee not only has disdain for City of Austin Police Department, but also feels that the Austin City Council sitting before me is an immoral board.
Called revenue. Your discretion.
No, if you look at our policies, it says that if we have a licensed driver that hasn't been drinking.
I wasn't. Oh, okay. I had one drink.
Okay.
But he was parked. He was parked in front of my house, or 3 houses down.
Well, if we have a licensed driver that hasn't been drinking, the policy allows us to turn it over to that person. But besides that, we're required to tow it.
Even if it's legally parked.
That's what the law says.
So.
That's what the policy says.
All right. Well, that's messed up. You know you don't have to follow all laws. If it's an immoral law, it's your responsibility to ignore it.
I mean, we follow policy.
Right, but.
Immoral people are writing the policy. The city council.
Oh, absolutely. You don't think city council's immoral? Come on.
I think they're a pretty good job.
You think so?
We believe that it should be the policy of this council to exercise its authority to reject appointments when it can be shown that the nominee will act in a manner contrary to the commission's purpose, or that the nominee will impede the commission's ability to function cohesively. For these reasons, we respectfully ask that Councilman Zimmerman withdraw his nomination for Shirley. This nominee has not been completely forthright with him about his beliefs and actions. If Councilman Zimmerman declines to withdraw the nomination, we respectfully ask that all 10 of you show your support for the men and women who risk their lives daily to keep this community safe. Vote no on this appointment, and thank you for your time. Any questions?
Thank you. We're fine, thank you. Derek Galloway. Is Derek Galloway here? Okay. Next speaker is Dawn Youngs. Hi, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, thank you very much, and I really appreciate you giving me an opportunity to speak today. I first want to let you know that I am speaking in support of Antonio Buehler's nomination, and I hope that you will vote in favor of him. I also want to let you know that I don't always agree with Antonio Buehler. In fact, I disagree with him a great deal many times, and some of the stuff that you've seen on these videos today I don't think was the right thing to do. However, I do think it's important that there's a variety and diversity of voices on this commission. And for that reason, I'm speaking in favor of him. I want to address some of the arguments that have been made against him. The first one is that he has a bias and an agenda. And I think that that's true. I'm going to concede that point. Yes, he does have a bias and an agenda. But I'll rephrase that bias and agenda to say that he has a bias towards justice, accountability, and responsibility within the police force and our other services. And I think that's an important voice. He will be willing to ask tough questions, and I think that we need someone on the commission that will do that. I also want to address the idea that perhaps the commission currently has a bias in the other direction, and that we need a little bit of counterbalance to that. The head of the commission is a former police officer, and I think that's great. I support our police. I think that it is important that they have a voice on that commission, but I think it's also important that the citizens have a voice on the commission too. And as one of 10 or 11 people, as you each are one of 10 or 11 people, I think that's a balance and a fair position to have. We're not asking him to be chief of police here. The next point is about relative experience. People have claimed that he doesn't have the relative experience to serve on this commission. And first of all, I would say that this is a citizens commission, and that means that we want citizens to be serving on it, not professional something or other, whatever the commission is serving. And he is a citizen, and I think that, first of all, gives him excellent experience. But aside from that, he's well-educated, former military. He has founded a nonprofit organization and made it very successful, even nationally known. I think that he brings a great deal of experience in finance, in business, et cetera, to this commission, and that would be a good thing. And finally, I have heard this argument, and I hesitate to bring it up because I think it's so unfounded, but I feel very passionate about it. I've heard the argument that you should vote against this appointment because it was made by Don Zimmerman. And this deeply offends my sense of justice and my sense of fairness within our political system. Don Zimmerman is a duly elected member of this council, and each and every one of you has the right to nominate someone to this commission. He represents his district, and therefore his nomination is representative of what his district wants. And I think that if you vote against this because it comes from him, aside from the fact that this is a fallacy of sort of a red herring fallacy, I think it really undermines our democratic system. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Stephen Donahue.
Good morning, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. My name is Stephen Donahue, and I'm here today to show my full support for Antonio Buehler for the Commission of Austin Public Safety. On June 24th, 2013, I was reading Fox News, or myfoxaustin.com, and I read this statement by then President Wayne Vinson, then President of the Austin Police Association. And he said the following, and I quote, "Our officers are out there with no relief from this kind of harassment, and it's not going to end well." Okay, I took that as a thinly veiled threat. Now, in those 2 years since then, the climate in this country has changed greatly, and people in this country are demanding accountability of our police officers. Okay? So, since that time, I've gotten to know Antonio Buehler. He has shown himself to be a person of great character, integrity, and moral courage above all. I implore you to put him on the commission, the Austin Public Safety Commission, and if possible, I will give my time to another speaker. Thank you.
Okay. Alice Neal.
Good morning, Council. I'm a resident of District 6, Gonzales Pools District. I would like to voice my support of Antonio Buehler.
Would you point the microphone a little bit closer to you? Thank you.
I would like to voice my support for Antonio Buehler for Austin Public Safety Commission. I believe that Mr. Buehler's commitment to safety and justice through his Peaceful Streets projects makes Antonio Buehler uniquely qualified for this commission. I have faith that Antonio Buehler would bring balance, accountability, and sound judgment to the position. I believe that we need Antonio Buehler on the Public Safety Commission, where he would be in a better position to help the city of Austin avoid the type of unfortunate events that have taken place in Baltimore and other cities. I believe that we are all safer when we know our rights as citizens, and when our rights are understood and respected by law enforcement. Please vote for Antonio Buehler for the Austin Public Safety Commission.
Thank you. Justin Armand.
Hello, Mayor, and with this. Okay. Thank you for listening to my testimony, Mayor and members of this council. I'm the Executive Director of Texans for Accountable Government. Many of my constituents are your constituents, and a lot of our members were involved in the 10-1 process. Austinites for Geographic Representation was a coalition we were a part of, and we wanted to push this new process and create a greater sense of representation and get the council members closer and more intimate with their constituents. And the reason why we wanted this is because we want accountability, because we want representation, and we want real people on these commissions. We want real people as a part of this council, and it honors me to be addressing and seeing the fruit of our labor in creating this new 10-1 system. I have to say that Antonio Buehler, I've worked closely with. He's inspired me. His education in and of itself he's given his own counsel to my family, and people only see really one side of him, and that's his activist side, because he was violated. Just as a citizen, he was violated. And it's come as an objective fact that the officers involved in that case lied under oath, and if he didn't have the community support he had, and if he didn't have somebody filming the incident, he would be sitting in jail right now. So this is something that is that he's impassioned by, and he's committed to serving and protecting his community. On an educational level, the man has given a speech at a TED Talk. I mean, we are all familiar with TED Talks, and the subject was empathy. Empathy is the virtue by which we achieve objectivity. We can never be perfectly objective, but when we focus and we try to understand as much as we possibly can about any given scenario, we can actually make sound judgments. So I fully support Antonio on the merit of his education, on his decorated military experience, and his bravery and courage to say the things that a lot of people feel. And what's happening in Baltimore is a result of social pressure that is building and building and building. And the antidote and relief to that social pressure is a voice. People need to feel like they have a voice. And he's a champion of the people. He's already proven that. And when he came forward with this case, people in the community opened up to Buehler, and they told him all these horrible things that happened to them. And so he feels personally violated. His anger is only because he wants to protect people. He doesn't want people to be hurt. And we say things out of anger. And unfortunately, a lot of times police officers, when they come to give testimony, they just show doom and gloom, doom and gloom. I've been a part of this legislative session for the last few months, and they come and it's just doom and gloom, but that's not a logical argument against his experience and his ability to serve the public. Please, I implore you to have the courage to vote for Agenda 22. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Jermaine Hopkins. Is Jermaine here?
He said he could be here by 11. He's very, very busy. We wanted to be here to serve and to give testimony in support of Antonio. Very packed day.
If he walks back in while we're still on this minute, please make sure that I'm told.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
Antonio Buehler. While Mr. Buehler's approaching, there are some additional people here. Sasha Rose, is she here? Is Sasha Rose here? Is Rebecca McHugh here? Where's Rebecca? Thank you, Rebecca. Is Logan Weems here? Logan Weems? Okay. You have 6 minutes, Mr. Buehler.
All right. So I could go ahead and address every single one of Ken Cassidy's points. Every single one was either dishonest, disingenuous, it was lacking serious context, or was an outright lie. So if you want me to address those after I speak, I'd be happy to answer to every single one of his claims. So I started the Peaceful Streets Project not because I hated police. In fact, in the interviews following my arrest, I repeatedly said that I respect police, I just want them to do their job, and I want the cops to be held accountable. Over the following couple of months, lots of people came forward to me telling me their own personal stories of abuse. Not one of them said that they wanted to be in the media. Not one said that they wanted to sue the police officers. Not one of them said they wanted retribution. Every single one of them said that they got screwed, there was nothing they could do, and that they wanted to see someone fight and win. Disproportionately, these people were homeless, black, Hispanic, poor, had prior drug convictions. These were people that no one cared about. These were people who did not have a voice at the city level. These are people who do not have a voice within the system. When I started my fight against Patrick Aborski and Robert Snyder back on January 1st, 2012, it was for self-preservation. I only wanted to protect myself. I did not want to go to prison for a crime I did not commit. When people came forward and told me about all the abuse that they've felt and they've experienced firsthand, including 2 women in Austin who've been raped at gunpoint by Austin police officers and had no way to fight back, and they are too scared to come forward, I decided that I was going to join forces with other people to start the Peaceful Streets Project to try to change the culture of Austin so that people would no longer tolerate the corrupt cops in this town. I did not have any faith in the Austin police, in the city council to do anything about it because the city council had been, citywide districts for ages, and we didn't feel that they represented the people. I had zero confidence that anything would ever change. When 10-1 came around, all of a sudden, we were going to give a voice to the people. The people were going to actually be able to get engaged with their city government, and I had hoped that the city council members here would be very different than the city council members before them, in that they wouldn't be swayed by the APA. They wouldn't be worried about donations from the APA. They wouldn't be worried about endorsements by the APA, and they'd have the courage to stand up against them. Now, a lot of people are saying that I do not have the qualifications to serve on this board because I'm biased. Ken Cassidy is the APA president. Of course he's going to say that. On an interview with Fox last night, he said that he agrees with the Austin Police Department 99% of the time, and he can't have someone like me on there who's going to disagree with them. Right now, the chair of that commission is a former police officer. At the meeting on Monday, they proposed a recommendation that they're going to forward on to you. During that time, one of the council members asked, because she was very confused, who wrote this? And the chair, a former police officer, said, me, Brian Manley, who's the assistant Austin police chief, and an administrative assistant. And then Brian Manley proceeded to tell the commission why it was they were putting forward the recommendation that he wrote for them. Now, come on, people. Do you want people who aren't going to question the Austin Police Department? Do you want people who are going to allow cops to write recommendations that get forwarded to you under the guise of a public safety commission? There's a serious need for change in this town, and 10-1 was the first step towards that. Now in June, you're going to have 11-member commissions, and I am one voice. I do not have an ability to write the entire recommendation like Brian Manley does. I would be one voice, and I would have to work with the other members of the commission. I would have to be able to present arguments, data, research. I'd have to challenge them. I'd have to challenge what the police say. And then if I was able to sway 10 other people, then that would go into a recommendation that would go to you. So you guys can think I hate cops all you want. That's fine. But I represent the voice of Austinites who've been ignored. I represent the voice of people who've been violated, attacked, raped, beaten, and killed. And let me just go back to January 1st, 2012. I never really talked about this because I don't think it's fair to drag a dead person's name for political favor. But when they were arresting me and they were arresting Norma, who had not committed a crime and who they maliciously charged with 2 additional crimes after she came out to the media, 2.5 miles away, there was a woman being murdered because the Austin Police Department only would send 1 police officer out to check into a report that a man was assaulting women on West Campus. 1 police officer. A woman was murdered that night, but they had 7 police officers to try to shut down someone who stood up for a woman being abused by police officers. And the last point that I'm going to make, unless you want me to address all of Ken Cassidy's lies and half-truths, is they argue that I'm a threat. I'm a threat to the police. I'm a threat to the people of Austin. They float things out there suggesting that I want cops dead, even though when they say that, it's a lie. If you'll permit me just to finish this one point. I've never committed a felony crime against anyone. John Coffey, Derek Bowman, Eric Copeland, Luke Serrato, Adam Johnson, Frank Wilson, Jonathan Whited, Daniel Hanna, Nathan Wagner, Brandon Blanche, Will Ray, and Will Ray again. Those are Austin police officers who are on the force, getting paid with our tax dollars, who have killed someone here in Austin. If the commission is not ready for my voice, then the commission is not concerned about police accountability.
Thank you for your time. There's a lot of information that's come to us, and ultimately, my vote in this won't be made with reference to bias on political views, because I think that we need lots of different views on boards or commissions. It goes to a sense of decorum and respect and the ability for commissions to be able to function. But I do have a question about information that's been provided. Did you post onto the internet the home addresses of police officers?
That's a lie. It's a half-truth. So Patrick Gaborski, who, when he arrested me, had, I think, 11 years of service. He was making about $130,000 a year. This is a guy who had never gone to college. Not that matters. I think people can make a lot of money if they're hard workers. But this is a guy who we were told numerous times had abused people. Numerous people have come forward to tell me about how he has abused people, and every single one of them happened to be a woman in her 20s or early 30s. He's making $128,000 a year. And someone pointed out to me that he just bought a pool for, I don't know, $40,000, had it installed in his, at his home. So I took that information and immediately pasted it into Facebook, and I said, crime pays. And there it was, $40,000 pool or something. Buried in the text, which I did not go through and read everything, buried in the text was, in addition to the contractor's address, was his home address. In the follow-up to that, lots of people said, hey, let's go to his house, let's flyer his house, let's do this, let's do that. And I am in that Facebook message constantly repeating, do not go to his house. No one go to his house. It can do no one any good. It's stupid, it's dangerous. And I said that over and over again, and in the FOIA that we got, the Austin Police Association and the Austin Police Department saw that entire thing. So they're claiming that I go around posting officers' personal information. That's the only example they have, and they have me on that forum saying, do not go there, do not go there, do not go there.
Okay,
so, and I can address every other one of Cassidy's claims as well, if you like.
Does anybody else have any further questions? Mr. Zimmerman.
Thank you, Mr. Buehler. The quick point I have that really touches me on this is people's ability to stand up for their rights. And I grew up in southeast San Antonio with a lot of uneducated people. And some of the people that you mentioned were my friends when I was a kid. And, I'm educated like you are. I know how to stand up for my rights if something goes wrong. But there are a great number of people, the ones that you've referred to, they just don't know how to stand up for their own constitutional rights, and they don't know how to seek redress, when they have a just grievance. So I think this is one of the most important distinctions that you bring is because of your background, you had the ability to go to court and fight, have a community of people that would support you, and you managed to get acquitted on charges that would have landed a lot of our people in jail, unjustified. And so that's one of the reasons that I've made your nomination, because of that important experience that you've had, and you can speak for those people. So.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily that everyone doesn't know. A lot of people do know. Most people don't know their rights, but a lot of people do know, but they're afraid. And they know that there's going to be retribution. when you look at what has happened to me and other members of the Peaceful Streets Project, I have not committed a crime. I have been arrested or charged with 10 different crimes by the Austin Police Department. I have not committed a crime. I have not been convicted of any crime. They have pushed forward 3 felonies against me, and they have failed on every one. One was a satirical Facebook post on the Free Antonio Buehler page, a closed page, and it was obviously satire. They forwarded to a district attorney a felony charge for online impersonation. That video where we're following that guy who we think is undercover, we just came out of a Peaceful Streets Project meeting, and the guy cut us off 3 times on MLK, and that's why we followed him. They tried to get me for child endangerment that night, another felony. The Austin Police Department and Austin Police Association hate accountability. They hate people who question them. I had a 4-day, what they call a capital misdemeanor trial because they were trying to get me for a $500 fine.
Mr. Buehler, thank you. All right. See if there's additional questions on the panel. Ms. Tovo.
I just want to get back to the Facebook post that the mayor was asking you about. It's not clear to me how you got the information that an officer was building a pool, or why you thought that was relevant to post on the internet.
Well, it was public information, and someone forwarded it to me, and in there we saw how expensive the pool was, and I just wanted to make a point that crime pays. Crime pays if you're in the right position, and if you are a police officer who gets 300 arrests per year for DUIs, the department's going to cover up your crimes, and the department is going to pay you well. And so I posted that. Again, I did not know that his address was on there, and that's the only example that the APA has to offer you, even though they claim that I do it all the time. And in the following thread, when someone points out that his address is on there, I never pointed that out. I immediately said, do not go to his house. Do not do it. Do not go close to his house.
I appreciate the point that you made on that. Did you edit your Facebook post to take out the address?
It's public information. I mean, it was already out there. I mean, so...
I see. So that was what you were saying was public information, the address, not the pool information.
No, it all was public information. The address was public information because it was posted on that, on what I was sent and copy and pasted. So apparently, I don't know how this works, but in Williamson County, maybe it's just Williamson County, in order to put a pool in Round Rock or whatever town he was in, he must have had to register or something. It becomes public information. The contractor information is there. All the details of the pool and the price and all that's on there. And it was buried in there. And what the APA won't do is they won't give you evidence of this stuff. They'll give you a flash video, but they won't give you evidence because in almost every single case, you can see that they're either lying or they're spinning the truth to make it look worse than it is.
And I just wanted to verify one thing that's on our information for today. Are you a City of Austin resident?
I used to be. I moved outside the City of Austin because the Austin Police Department were having people parked outside my home. I felt extremely unsafe. I had people online tell me that I was not going to be very long on this earth if I kept standing up to the police department. And so I moved into an ETJ right outside the city limits of Austin because I don't want APD officers kicking in my door in the middle of the night. They've already shown that they're willing to kill people. One of the officers that I'm suing has killed people. They're willing to arrest me on bogus charges. They're willing to push fake felonies on me. They're willing to get warrants that they have no right getting. And so I felt unsafe, so I moved outside the city limits.
Thank you for the answer.
Yes, Ms. Poole.
I just had a quick question for you, Mr. Buehler. The video that we saw with you chasing, that was you in the passenger seat, or were you the driver?
I was the driver.
Can you explain what your intentions were with that chase?
Yeah, so the guy cut us off 3 times on MLK. So we just came out of a Peaceful Streets Project meeting, and we have lots of evidence where the Austin Police Department admits internally that they surveil our meetings. They have infiltrated our police accountability summits. They watched our live streams. And so when we came out of that meeting, some guy just cut us off once, twice, and 3 times. It was obviously a fit of road rage, and we didn't know if it was intentional because we're peaceful streets or if he was just a jerk. In the video, you hear me asking, what's up with the road rage? because clearly that was the case. And so we wanted to film him because we assumed that it was an undercover police officer, and we wanted to get that information and film it online. As you can see right at the end, he cut us off again. We didn't break any laws. We might have broken the speed limit on airport by like 5 miles or something, but once he sped off, we didn't keep up with him. And so, we were trying to expose what we thought was an undercover police officer who was acting with the road rage and tried to run us off the road at least 3 times. So, and I'm not saying that that's necessarily good for public safety, but what's really bad for public safety are police officers who can beat, rape, frame, and kill people. And I just want police to be held accountable. And if we want a commission where no one's going to ask those questions and they're going to allow the assistant police chief to write the recommendations to the city council, then this city council is not serious about police accountability, and they can hide behind the stuff that APA has said. I have faith that 10-1 will at least allow some of you to do the right thing and stand up to a very bullying police force.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you very much. Next speaker. I saw that. Thank you. John Rowland. Thank you for letting me know.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is John Rowland. I'm founder and president of the Constitution Society, website constitution.org. I rise here today to support the appointment of Captain Antonio Buehler to the Public Safety Commission. I've come to know Captain Buehler as a fellow veteran. We both once took the oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. I found in conversation that he is particularly sensitive to the finer points of constitutional history, law, and government, and would, to the best of his ability, represent the constitutions of the United States and the state of Texas in any public matter in which he might become involved. The credibility of the Public Safety Committee, the Commission, depends upon a balanced representation of critics as well as supporters. It cannot be perceived as in the pocket or having been compromised by the agency that it is intended to supervise. And for that reason, I would argue against the appointment of any current or former member of the police department on the commission. If they want their expertise, they can call them as witnesses, but they should not be members. And Captain Buehler brings his own expertise. He is able in not only areas of law, but also technical aspects that the commission is going to have to consider in recommending things like remedial action, how it is that we can avoid these kinds of problems in the future. If you have any questions.
Thank you very much, sir. Next speaker is Thad Crouch. Take your time.
Happy Thursday, council members. I'm Thad Crouch. I reside in District 5. I've lived in Austin since the last millennium. And I came here today on crutches and by bus in the rain because this is important to me. We started today with a prayer about Jesus. Jesus was concerned about the dignity of all people. As a pro-life ministry volunteer, I am concerned about the sanctity and dignity of all human lives. And because of that, I'm very concerned when I see instances and patterns of some of our police stepping over their authority and violating the dignity of our citizens. even at times using unnecessary violence that violates the very sanctity of life. Even worse, we see little or no accountability for such actions. We see this in the news in Austin, and we see it around the nation. And that's why I support Antonio Buehler for an appointment to the Public Safety Commission. I do know that some police do heroic things. And some of my closest high school friends are police officers. And I don't agree with everything Antonio says. I absolutely don't agree with some of his word choices and name-calling. Though I think anger is justified and predictable when people are abused by the police and their voices are ignored and there's no accountability. I think he's doing... Where did I get lost? What I do agree with is his incredible stand for justice and for accountability. And because I know he was an Army captain, I know he can work within organizations and bureaucracies. And like Antonio, I am an Army veteran. And when I enlisted to protect the lives, the freedoms, and the rights of the American people and to protect democracy. And watching Antonio donate so much of his time and his money and take so many risks, I think he's done more to directly protect the freedom and rights of Americans in Austin than he ever did in Iraq. The democracy that we value works best when there's a variety of voices. If Baltimore had more avenues for their voices to be heard, those demonstrations might not have gone down the way they did. The commission is going from 7 to 11 members, and that means there's room for more diversity. Heck, there should be 3 people like Antonio on this commission asking hard questions, and the police should be accountable. Some of you might be scared to go against the APA, even when you campaigned for greater police accountability. Vote for the dignity and sanctity of life. Support democracy. Keep Austin accountable. And vote for Antonio Buehler to this commission. This is your test for 10-1.
Thank you.
Is it the same or is it changed?
The next speaker, Jermaine Hopkins. Is Debbie Russell here? Okay. Jermaine Hopkins. Ms. Hopkins, you have 6 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to start off by saying thanks for waiting on me, and thank you for having me and allowing me to speak here. Mr. Ott, how you doing? I'm going to start off by saying, as a former police officer, I do have the benefit of seeing things from a different perspective. When I first contacted Mr. Buehler, I told him right off the bat, you and I, our views do not coincide. However, my experiences in APD have forced me to actually see the lack of accountability that's going on within APD, within the 5th floor of APD. I mean, and then the other day I was sickened to see that individuals from APD are actually people who have demonstrated lack of integrity are involved in matters that pertain to officer integrity. And these are people who are going to be making decisions on whether or not an officer's actions are within policy, whether they're legal. Yet we have people involved in this who've been indefinitely suspended and for lack of integrity, and then they've been disciplined again for lack of integrity. I mean, that goes to show the climate that's going on within APD and why someone like Mr. Buehler is necessary on the Public Safety Commission. There's many officers within APD who outright assume, Jermaine Hopkins got fired, he's anti-police now, and whatnot. That's far from the truth. I mean, like I said, me and Mr. Buehler's views do not coincide with every little thing, but one thing I can say is Mr. Buehler is very objective. The first time Mr. Buehler and I met up to talk, I was more nervous about that meeting than I was on a first date, because I was like, how's this going to go? I mean, the Buehler I'm used to seeing was what I saw on YouTube. I didn't like Mr. Buehler before I reached out to him, but what forced me to reach out to him was the fact that I was seeing the things that he was saying were taking place, and we actually talked and discussed those things. And the things that we disagreed on, Mr. Buehler, those conversations were actually more civil in nature than a conversation between me and a best friend of mine. So I think that goes to show the objectivity that Mr. Buehler would bring to this commission. Further demonstrating the lack of accountability is the fact that simple things like open records requests are being held within APD. They're being tampered with, doctored, or concealed. I mean, I filed 2 suits now just to get open records. I mean, so why would we be deferring to Austin Police Department on this commission when they can't even produce things that they have a lawful duty to produce to the public? So, I mean, I'm in end right there, but I do ask that you guys vote in favor of Mr. Buehler for the Public Safety Commission.
Thank you, sir. Isla Waters. Isla. Please tell me how to pronounce your first name.
Isla Waters.
I apologize.
No apology necessary. Thank you. I am here to support Antonio Buehler's nomination to the Public Safety Commission. I have much love for the city of Austin, and I have much respect for our government and the democratic process, having previously had the opportunity to work for the White House Advance Office. I am also a survivor of police brutality. I share Antonio's passion for justice and accountability, and I encourage you all, as well as the Austin Police Department, to welcome and support this nomination. We live in a democratic society, but when the citizens have a say in how they are policed. But unfortunately, with citizens can be arrested, punched, tasered, intimidated, harassed, brutalized, terrorized, wrongfully arrested, and even killed by a police officer. And those police officers are rarely, if ever, held accountable for violating our rights and never forced to make amends. Then we don't actually live in a democratic society. We live in a police state. It is time for change. It is time to welcome all points of view, and that includes opposing views. It's time for our city and our police to be held to higher standards. I can appreciate Mr. Zimmerman's comments earlier about people not knowing how to stand up for their rights. We did not know how to stand up to the police and to the district attorney who terrorized us, to the police officers who brutally attacked and severely injured us. We felt hopeless in our situation. It was only when I was able to meet and learn about Antonio Buehler that I felt that I had finally a voice. And while I sometimes don't agree with Antonio's language and name-calling, I do understand and share his anger and frustration with the lack of police accountability. I do hope that you all will support his nomination and welcome his points of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Joshua Pineda.
Yes, hi. I'm an organizer with the Peaceful Streets Project. First, I'd like to start off with one of the opening remarks that APD made today, which was that we should grovel before them for defending us from ISIS. And I would like to remind them that we pay people far more qualified to deal with ISIS. And to please acknowledge more so that you're currently in court for murder. So no thanks, partner. Be more concerned with yourself. In order to ensure that they're going to be more concerned with themselves and the abuse and exploitation that they exhibit on this community, we need Antonio Buehler on this commission. And now as I go into bringing him up for nomination, I remind you that we are not nominating Antonio Buehler from 2012 when these videos, when these remarks of language are coming forth. We're nominating Antonio Buehler of 2015, the Harvard graduate and my best friend and mentor that's helped me reform my own tactics in police accountability for the better of this community. And if you are more concerned with language, then you are the miscomings of APD, the acts of murder, the brutality. Then that is absolutely part of the problem and how we got here. And if you look at this community and you see the state that it's in now, they're burning the American flag. They're stomping on it. Activists, young activists in their early 20s in college with a bright future ahead of them are trying to hurl themselves and sacrifice their lives in front of traffic to halt it just to get attention for the acts of brutality that have been continuously ignored by the city council and this police department. And I would like to say their only and main argument is the biasness that they're afraid that Antonio will have in this court. This entire system from the ground up, the way it stands now, is extraordinarily biased in favor of the police department. And so I'll start with massive acts, against the Constitution with failure to obey a lawful order. This is one of the most common things they throw at us to arrest us. I've been arrested several times for filming the police. I was never charged with a crime, but I was taken to jail. I had my belongings taken from me. I was stripped down. I had my genitals grabbed, and I was afraid for my life to stand up for myself and stand for my innocence, which we now know to be factual. If I would have stood for my innocence, I would have been strapped to a chair, pepper sprayed, and had a mask put over my face. That is what this police department represents. That is how much my life matters to them and how much they're focused on the safety of this community, that an innocent man will be strapped to a chair and have a mask put over his face. And then I would also like to say that the one thing the City Council has put in place for us is the Police Monitor's Office, which during the rulings of that was extraordinarily biased towards the police department in the sense that I can file a complaint. I can never fully know the details of that investigation. That investigation can become public. It can only be recommended, the findings, to the police chief, and then it's up to him whether or not he wants to make it public, which we know now during the Byron Carter trial, he lied and abused that system. I would also like to remind APD and the speaker that was here at the opening day to please talk to the Jackson family about how he protects them from ISIS, and that makes this totally all right.
Thank you very much.
That's it.
Thank you. Casey Weems, and then Adam King Blackwell Raposa.
Good afternoon. My name is Casey Weems. I'm a resident of Austin for over 20 years, and I took time out of my day, a good many hours, as many of these others have as well, to come down here because this is also extremely important to me as well, just like the opinions you heard previously. I think I love my city. I think that we value diversity of opinion more than other cities, especially in the South. I love my country, and I think that it's built upon checks and balances. And when these checks and balances fail, it puts us in a crisis. And I think that's what we see right now, the crisis that we're having with Ferguson and with Baltimore. So I think Austin's a progressive city. We are finally at a point where we can make a change and be ahead of the curve of other cities in dealing with this crisis that we have. Last year, I have no doubt that a previous council, we would not be having this discussion at all. So 10-1 gives us this opportunity to express diversity of opinion. What good is 10-1 that brings diversity of opinion if those recommendations of diversity do not get voted down by an appointment to a commission? What good is a commission if everyone's buddy-buddy with the ones that they're supposed to be watchdogs with? What good is a body camera policy if the people controlling the footage are the ones that are involved? You have to have independence. It's just like an audit. An auditor for a company or any other checks and balances, we need this. We need this diversity of opinion. It's one voice out of 11. And so I implore you to support Antonio Buehler in this candidacy. I don't agree with everything he says, especially his choice of words, which I think undermine the real power of the argument that he's making. But I'm here to support it. I especially want to communicate with, I'm now a homeowner on the east side, where I really want my East Austin council members do not abstain from this important vote. You know, I know it's a tug of war for you because we need the police on the east side, and we appreciate the police on the east side because a lot of activities over there. And so I know you don't want to upset them, but we also are probably, our east side residents, having the most repressed opinions and who do not have a voice. And this is the voice that you can give to those people, our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam, King Blackwell Raposa.
Thank you. Now, this is great. Councilman Zimmerman, when I heard you were from San Antonio, I'm from San Antonio, I knew you had something to bring because that's a majority-minority town. And, you know, this is all kind of laughable, right? Like the idea that this swing vote of 1 of 11 people is some big controversial issue. What's really a question is legitimacy. Is there a question of the legitimacy of the role of the police? Is there a question of we need to be concerned for public safety? A vote for Antonio Buehler is a vote that, yes, that's a valid concern. And what the police are saying is, no, that is not a valid concern. Hush. They're bringing up, when you go get a pool, you know what you have to do? You have to get permitted and make your information public. So when Patrick Oborski makes a decision to get permitted and make his information public, he takes that information made public by a city and puts it out on the internet just like the city, and now that's grounds to exclude him? That's laughable. He hasn't done anything. All he's done is say, I'm going to film these cops and show you what's really going on, because everyone knows the media puts this layer, puts this spin, and I'm not mad about police. I'm a criminal defense lawyer. You think 130 grand is money? 130 grand ain't nothing. Police make a lot of arrests, make me a lot of money, so I'm not bitching about police. I'm saying that the other side is just as valid. Let's have a guy on there who's trying to make the best argument in an adversarial way, and then people vet it out and decide what to do. 10 other people, an 11-person commission, and y'all are worried that like it's the end of the world. There's nothing here. This is just symbolic. This is just saying, yeah, it's what happens. Money gets concentrated, wealth gets concentrated over time. People are brainwashed their whole lives by the media and the education system. And now you've got a police force whose job is to maintain the status quo with more and more nobodies having nothing. That's a hard job to do. When more and more people are poor, have no education, and have nothing, being a cop is a hard job. I'm not saying their job is easy. I'm saying we ought to make them accountable for how they do the job and then ask broader questions, not just bury our head in the sand, follow the brainwashed course of human evolution to where 4 people own the whole world and everyone else is a cop whose job it is to kill someone who's upset about it. And Antonio is saying, well, you know, that kind of does make sense. We really should be showing people how the cops really operate. And a bunch of people are screaming, no, 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 don't do that. That's where you're at. That's what this is. Your decision isn't going to make some huge radical change in the future of Austin. It's just going to say, no, it's a legitimate problem. It is something upon which we might have a little concern. And trust me, people with money, they don't want that concern. And the cops whose job it is to maintain the status quo of the people with money, they for damn sure don't want that concern.
Thank you. Those are the speakers that we had signed up. I'm going to take this in pieces, this item number 22 that appears in the backup. We're going to begin with Mr. Buehler. Before we get to Mr. Buehler's nomination, let's first address the waiver. There's a request to approve a waiver of the residency requirement. Does anyone want to move to adopt that waiver?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we adopt all the waivers. I believe we have more than one, don't we?
We do, but because of this, I'm going to take them individually.
Do you want to separate the question?
I do.
Okay. Well, then I'll move that we approve the waiver for Captain Buehler.
Is there a second to the motion to approve the waiver? Second? I'm sorry? Mr. Kassar seconds the motion. debate on the discussion about approving the waiver?
I'm interested in hearing the discussion on his appointment in particular, but I don't see why not to approve the waiver for Mr. Buehler if we'll be approving the waiver for others.
Because I may vote differently on different waiver requests. The motion before us is to approve the waiver on Mr. Buehler. There's been a second. We're now discussing that waiver.
And Mayor, some of the waivers are about serving on two commissions. It's not residency.
Right. So I'd be happy to talk first on this, and I'll explain the basis. Yes.
I speak in favor of.
Yes.
Yeah. I'd like to speak in favor. We did look up residency, and it looked to me on the map, it looked like Captain Buehler's residency was surrounded by Austin. He's in an ETJ area, but I believe he is surrounded by the city in his residence. So if you look at the map, right, you'll see areas where we haven't completed annexations, but the neighborhoods around have already been annexed, and I believe that's the situation in this case. So it's almost he's inside the city, but ironically not in the full purpose annexation. So to me, it seems like he's in the city geographically.
So for me, this discussion about Mr. Buehler, and we've addressed this on some other nominations that have come before the panel, and trying to come up with and articulate an overarching policy or direction for how I would vote on nominations that are made to commissions or panels. And in this respect, it's something that is a larger issue than Mr. Buehler's nomination here, because it's something that I want to try to articulate that would concern not only the nominations that we've had before, some of which have been in controversy, some of those I was ready to vote for, some of those I was ready to vote against. I think that it's important that in this 10-1 system we give deference to the nominations that are made by each of us. We were elected by different parts of the city to represent different views. And we don't serve the city well if there becomes a litmus test as to whether or not someone can be approved based on whether we agree with that person's views or whether in our mind they represent the voices that are coming from the district of the person who nominates them. The person who was elected and nominates them has already been selected by the people in that district to make those nominations. So I think that there should be considerable deference given. I think at the same time, obviously, we've been given the responsibility of passing on the nominations that have been made, so I think that there's some function for us as a council on this dais to deliberate and to do that. I think that Mr. Buehler is an important voice in this community. I think that the positions that he takes are voices and sentiments that need to be heard and need to be discussed and need a place in the commerce of ideas and discussion. I don't think that's the same question that we're being asked today. The question we're being asked today is whether or not that person makes for an appropriate nominee to a board or commission. And I see those two functions as not necessarily always being in concert with one another. Because someone who's being appointed to a board or commission should not only come with views and ideas, but should also be able to be and have demonstrated a pattern of conduct that is conducive to being a constructive participant on a volunteer board with other volunteers from the community that are donating their time. In making that assessment with respect to that, the kinds of things that I would look for would be a pattern of prior conduct as the best evidence of future behavior with respect to whether it's abusive or threatening or sexist or racist or bigoted, And I'm clearly, Mr. Buehler does not fall into at least several of those categories. But there have been some issues raised with respect to other nominees that have been made. But I will look to those kinds of things. Beyond that, with respect to the vote, and I would be guided by that in making a vote on this nominee should the waiver be granted. We have a policy in this city of having people who are residents serve on boards and commissions. That's the policy. When we grant, there are policy reasons to support that. That's the policy of this council unless and until it's changed. We do have the ability to grant a waiver from that policy. And in my mind, I would grant a waiver against that policy if I believe there are exigent circumstances that would dictate for me a departure from that general policy. And for me, it would be that someone has a particular skill or insight or something that would add to the productiveness of the board or commission that's in question. In this case, I will vote against the waiver of the residency requirement because in this case, I don't find that it meets that higher standard that I think would fall for granting the exigent circumstance for a waiver in this case. Any further discussion on the motion to grant the waiver?
Maybe,
Mr. Renteria.
I also believe that we should, pick citizens that are going to be productive. I served on a lot of commissions in my lifetime, and the commissions are to address the needs and be productive and provide the citizens to the needs that that needs to make this city a safe city. So I'm also going to vote against the waiver.
Further debate or discussion on the question of granting the waiver to the residency requirement? Mr. Kassar.
Mr. Mayor, I will hold on my comments on Mr. Buehler's appointment until the vote on that, but I do think that just as a matter of policy for me, I'll support the waiver given that he's so close to the city, and for me the reason to grant this waiver might be because somebody has those exceptional skills or because, as Councilmember Zimmerman noted, they're virtually in the city, and it seems to me just something that I would consider not that big of a deal, and so I'll be supporting the waiver and then discussing a bit my vote on the appointment afterward.
Further discussion on granting the waiver? We'll take a vote. All those in favor of granting the waiver, please raise your hand. Zimmerman, Kassar, and Troxler. Those opposed to granting the waiver, please raise your hand. 5, Kitchen, Garza, me, Renteria, and Houston. Those abstaining, Poole and the Mayor Pro Tem. The motion to grant the waiver does not pass.